Hey guys, AntVenom here, and welcome back to another video. And today I'm going to be doing something that is far out of the ordinary for me, but it is something that I think you guys are going to appreciate, and it involves a lot of things that you guys have been asking for quite a long time. And that is specifically a combination of what are the specs for your machine, and what do you edit with, and what do you live stream with, and all of those sorts of questions are going to be answered in this video, which is my hardware and software rundown video. So yeah, first off, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna show you guys everything that is in my computer here, everything from the case to, the type of RAM that's in there. And then I'm going to be showing you guys the software that I use in my computer. And specifically for the software, I am going to have all of the settings that I use in pictures in the description below. So if you guys are interested in all of my rendering settings that I use for various programs, the settings that I use for OBS in order to live stream, which is mostly default options anyways. But anyways, I'll have all of those pictures in the description below. But anyways, I guess we should probably start off here with the rig itself. Yeah, this is a computer that, well, I can't really name the price on, because that's a big one that I get asked a lot, is how much did your computer cost? And I would say with all of the components that are in there right now, this tower alone might be like $2 or $3 grand or something like that. Maybe like $2.5 grand or something like that. But obviously this has been a system that has been in the works for like a very long time. Like I just recently replaced the graphics card that was in there from two GTX 680s to a GTX 980 because I have a lot of like issues with SLI, like Minecraft and G-Sync on my monitor don't specifically like working very well, so I decided to go with a single card there. But anyways, let's go ahead and let's start with the outside here. This case is a case that, well, let's just say prior to rebuilding my system about 2 months ago, I actually was using a Corsair 800D case, but it's like a giant big brother to this case, and I kind of didn't like the size, so I decided to change the case. I ultimately, after buying one case, not liking it, and then buying another, I went with the Corsair 450D case. I really like this case because of how it looks like on the front and on the sides. It's very simplistic, it's very nice, but it also has some really nice features like this magnetic fan grill that is on the top. Super easy to clean. The fan grills that are on the bottom, like super easy to get out, and for the most part pretty super easy to put back in as well. Like seriously, I was able to just do that on like a live demo. It's not even a problem. So yeah. And also the front fan grills are really easy to remove as well. But yeah, so I'm not gonna, pull that one out. But anyways, so that is the case, and again, I chose it, just because it's a very simplistic design. Going into the case itself here, if I could not drop the side panel and like damage it or whatever. Going into the case itself here, let's go ahead, let's start with the heart of the system, the motherboard. This is a fairly old motherboard at this point because the system is a little bit old, but I have a Sabertooth X79 motherboard in there, which, it was a very high-end board. It's one that was recommended to me, and one that I saw had really good reviews on Newegg when I actually purchased it. So that's the board that I decided to go with. Looking back at it, I kind of regret buying it because it has sort of this like army green thing going on. And as you guys might be able to tell, I have a predominantly black, white, and blue system going on here. Specifically when the system is on, which you guys are seeing from various B-roll footage that I'm going to be, overlaying over this video, you're going to see there's like a very blue hue that's going on with this system. So yeah, that's sort of this theme that I wanted to really go for with this because I'm a fan of blue, not really so much like red, like what Asus is doing these days with like 80% of their boards, like the entire Rampage series boards. Not really a huge fan of that. So I decided, for the time being, like I'm okay with this board because it's not like a bright green. It's very dark in color, so I'm okay with it for now. But anyways, the CPU is a Intel 3960X. This is I think it's 2 generations old at this point. But yeah, if you guys are building a rig for yourselves, I really wouldn't recommend going for an Extreme Edition unless like you can really leverage all those additional cores. Like if you're doing 3D rendering constantly or something, then maybe an Extreme Edition would make a lot of sense for you. But if you're doing gaming, then you can get like I think it's like a 5770K or 4770K even. Like those are great processors still. Or if you're looking to do some moderate rendering, then like a 4930K or 4730K. I'm not exactly sure which ones you should be going for, but let's just say like the price usually dictates the performance, so just sort of bear that in mind. I'm a big fan of Intel stuff. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a bit of an Intel fanboy. I really don't like AMD stuff. I don't know, specifically like with their graphics card, I have had very bad memories with like them being really hot and really loud, and I don't know, I just don't feel like dealing with that. I'm fine with the system that I got, you know, to each your own as far as the parts you wind up choosing for your system. So yeah, the motherboard, CPU out of the way. The CPU cooler here is actually a Corsair H105 water cooling setup. It has a dual 120 millimeter radiator that, you know, mounts to the top of the case. And some people, like, if you wind up aiming for my exact setup, you're gonna have to bear something in mind that the H105 does not fit in this case. Not in the way they intended anyways. I actually kind of had to ghetto mount it onto the top of the case here because the top of this case specifically has some really nice ventilation holes that are like perfectly sized for actually fitting screws through, but they're not meant to fit screws through them. So basically the problem with this water cooler is if you mount it on the proper mounting points, it actually, the motherboard like heatsink here interferes with it, along with the 8-pin CPU connector that's up top there. They interfere and like you can't mount it there. So I have it mounted in such a way that pushes it like an inch forward or something like that, or not even an inch forward, just enough so that I can mount the thing in the system. So yeah. The temperatures that I get are, well, it may not seem all that great, but I get about 43 degrees Celsius when under idle, but under load I get about 65 degrees Celsius. So it's really nice temperatures. The idle temperature is a little bit high because I have this 3960X constantly at 1.3 volts overclocked to 4.3 gigahertz. And I have it overclocked because, again, I can really leverage that. I do see a significant performance bonus with overclocking the system when I wind up rendering videos in Sony Vegas, and to me every second counts, so I like having the thing overclocked. But if I don't have it overclocked, my idle temperatures are about 30 degrees Celsius, so yeah, there's that. All right, moving on here. The graphics card specifically is a reference GTX 980 from EVGA. This is, you know, their sort of stock cooler here, but I've actually done a little bit of a modification here. You guys might have seen on Twitter or something for the past couple of days, or on Instagram or something. I don't know when I posted it or where I did. But I actually, by default, this cooler has like this green text, or basically it's sort of like this black and white plastic with a green overlay that goes over here so that when an LED shines through it, it appears green. But what you can actually do is you can actually, if you disassemble the card and remove that sort of LED panel thing, you can actually sand off the green rubber and it sort of turns into a white and then a gray. And it doesn't matter if you're on the white or the gray, but if you sand it to the white or gray layer, the LED will actually shine through white. So, you know, not having a green LED in a white, blue, and black system is a nice thing, because I didn't really like having a green LED showing up there. But anyways, moving on to the rest of the system here, the power supply is a Seasonic X850 power supply. And I went with that one because I had a Corsair 1050 watt power supply, but I started getting a lot of coil whine. And basically, if you guys don't know what coil whine is, on most modern graphics cards, play a game that runs at like 1,000 frames per second and put your ear to the computer, you'll probably hear a noise like a really high-pitched noise, but it's kind of quiet. I can't stand for that at all. That just doesn't work for me. I do not like the idea of having coil whine. So my power supply started introducing coil whine. So I went from the 1050 watt power supply to a Seasonic X850. And the reason why I chose Seasonic is because I've heard like nothing but good things about them, specifically in the regard of coil whine, but also in performance as well. So I decided to go with them. I've been perfectly happy with this thing. This thing also has flat cables, which makes it really nice for routing a bunch of cables out behind the back of this computer, because the back of this computer is kind of a mess. I may not even wind up showing it on this video here, but yeah, it does actually work out quite well. So anyways, going into the hard drive setup, in the back of the computer where they're actually specifically meant to be mounted, I won't be able to show you guys, I have two, I think it's Samsung 840 SSDs, 512 gigabytes, in a RAID 1 configuration. Now, for those of you that know what RAID is, you might be asking why I went with a RAID 1 setup, and that's because data fault tolerance is really critical for me. You know, being in an editing setup where I have all of these like configurations that I really don't want to lose, I'll lose hours and hours and hours of setup time if I have to, like, you know, reinstall an operating system, like make sure that I have all of the necessary files again, and whatnot. It's just, it would be a real pain to have to deal with that. And I also have these Western Digital RAID 3 terabyte drives in RAID 1 as well for the same reason. So they're in RAID 1 because most of my programs are installed on this D drive here, you know, this sort of RAID array that's in front here. But let's just say I lost my C drive, like the boot drive, let's just say that wasn't under RAID 1 and it failed. and I had to reinstall Windows on the C drive. Well, now I have this dilemma where I reinstall Windows, but all of these programs that are on this D drive, well, they have no connection to this newly installed operating system, and therefore they'd be kind of useless, or I'd have to like, you know, mess with them in certain ways to like be able to make sure they're installed again. So I don't know. Running both in RAID 1 is the most secure way for me to ensure that I'm never losing any of the data. I have had occurrences where one drive did actually go down, and all you have to do is you pop in a new drive, you open up the RAID software, and you're just like, hey, reinitialize this. It's like done. It takes like a few hours, and all of your data is once again mirrored. So I really like that setup, and yeah, that's the reason why I do it. Specifically, the case fans that are in this are just, you know, the ones that are on the cooler are the stock 120 millimeters pressure optimized fans, just because they're good to go on a radiator like this. And then these are some Corsair, like the two fans in the front are Corsair, let's see, 140 millimeter airflow blue LED fans, and then the ones on the bottom and on the back are 120 millimeter versions of the blue LED fans. So yeah, those are the fans that actually you know, exhaust air in from the, or they intake air in from the front and eject it directly out the back and out the top. So I have great airflow in this case, which means I can keep the fans at a really low RPM because the air just moves so nicely through the system. And with how well cable managed I've managed to get the thing, like I don't have to worry about airflow being restricted at all with this case. So yeah, the very last thing with my hardware setup that I think, oh no, actually I didn't go over the RAM. The RAM specifically, I'm running 32 gigabytes of Corsair Low Profile X. You know, they're black colored, just to sort of match with the theme of the case. They're low profile 8 gigabyte sticks of RAM. And I went with low profile specifically because I was previously using an air cooler, a Fantex air cooler that's like really big, and it like dominated the RAM slots. Now I could have taller memory over it, but the problem is that I was not able to remove the memory without removing the cooler by itself, or by unless I really forced the memory. I actually had a really bad experience when I was swapping the memory out to put this new memory in. But now I have a water cooler in here. So it doesn't really matter that much. RAM speeds, like you can get 1866 memory like what I have in here, or you can get 3000, like 3 gigahertz memory, speed memory. It doesn't really make that big of a difference really. It's more about the capacity rather than the speed and the timing and whatnot. So I'm good with what I got in there. I'm not really overly concerned all that much. But yeah, the last thing I guess that I have to show off in this system is, well, these white cables that are right here. So specifically, you guys have probably seen the motherboard cable and the cable going into the graphics card are white, whereas the cables coming out of the power supply are flat and black. And specifically what these cables are is these are Silverstone extension cables that you can buy on like Newegg. That's where I got them. And this specifically is I have two 6-pin extension cables. They go around to the back, plug into the normal power supply cable. So the back is, as I said before, quite a mess in the system. But yeah, so I have that there, I have that there, and then I have an 8-pin CPU connector as well. That is white as well. It stood out more like that cable, the CPU cable that's in the back, like the back here. That one specifically stood out when I had the Corsair 800D case, but with the case that I'm running now, it still looks just fine. So yeah, the very last thing I actually almost totally forgot is the LEDs that run all around this case. Specifically, it goes from the top of the back to the bottom of the front. It runs all along and is totally hidden here. The name escapes me as to what type of LED strips they are, but I'll try and remember to have a link in the description below. If I do forget, be sure to remind me. I will get those links in the description so that you guys can check them out. But anyways, I think that about does it for the hardware side of things. Let's go ahead and let's move over to the software where I'll show you guys what I use to edit, what I use to render my videos, what I use to live stream, and all of the settings that you guys are going to need for those things specifically. Alright guys, so here we are on the software portion of this video along with my peripheral setup as well. I'm going to be going pretty quickly through my software setup just because all of the information you're going to need for those are in the description below. And if you guys want tutorials on how to use this sort of software, they're all over the internet. It's not going to be worth it for me to show you how to edit with software. I've been editing with Sony Vegas for 8 years. So like I couldn't possibly teach you everything that I know in like one sitting or anything like that. So if you guys are interested, I recommend, like, if you want to specifically use Sony Vegas for editing, download like the trial software, try it out, get used to it. You know, that's really the best advice that I can give. You're gonna learn more from messing around with half of the software yourself than you are from tutorials. But anyways, going into the important peripherals of my system, my microphone is an MXL009 USB microphone that I painted black. This is a Samsung SP01 microphone shock mount that I use, connected to a Rode PSA-1 boom arm stand. And the reason why I have this advanced boom arm stand rather than something really simple is because it absorbs all the shock vibrations from like me tapping on the keyboard, so you guys don't hear like boom, 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 boom from, you know, my keyboard or anything like that. And it allows me to freely move the microphone back and forth as I see fit, as I need to, you know, for whether or not I'm going to be in a Skype call, or if I'm just sort of casually chilling out, I can move the microphone back or up above or whatever so that it's not really in the way. The keyboard and mouse is specifically, this is a Corsair K70 RGB LED key. Yeah, RGB LED keyboard. This is a Cherry MX Red model. As much as you might hear about Cherry MX browns and blues, those are not gaming. Those are good for typing. If you're never going to record videos, maybe you should go with a Cherry MX brown or blue. But if you want to go for gaming, a good gaming keyboard, I recommend Cherry MX Black or Cherry MX Red key switches. So yeah, the reds are the quieter than blacks. So yeah, and the mouse itself, this is, you know, the mouse really doesn't matter when it comes to gaming, but it's the Myonix AVR 8200, which is an RGB mouse that I have set to blue. Any tip that I can give as far as a keyboard is concerned for playing games or for being really good at them, maybe get a mechanical keyboard. That's about the best advice that I can offer. Pretty much all, if it uses Cherry MX switches, it really doesn't matter, just as long as you get the right type of switch. I mean, they're all good switches. It's just that blue ones are loud. Brown ones are like not that great for gaming, but they're fine. Like if you have a Cherry MX brown keyboard, you're fine. But yeah, that's pretty much the best advice that I can recommend, is to get that sort of thing. The headphones are Bose SoundTrue headphones. Those are just really good headphones. I just like them. They're not really too high tech, but at the same time, they're not a slouch either. They're like 150 bucks or something, and I'm very, very happy with them. So yeah, the monitor, the creme de la crop of all monitors. This is a big one. This is a big purchase for me, but it is the Asus ROG Swift 27-inch 1440p G-Sync monitor. Now 1440p is important because I really do like having that high resolution to edit with. It's 2560 by 1440, whereas these two side monitors are just sort of generic Asus 1080p 60 Hz monitors. But 144 Hz allows me to see 144 frames a second. A lot of people might say, like, the human limit, oh, it's at 60 frames per second. Yeah, BS. Use a 144 Hz monitor at 144 frames a second and compare that to 60 FPS. You will see it like it's night and day. So yeah, but another main important difference is the fact that this is a G-Sync monitor. Now, you might get 100 FPS or 60 FPS on your 60 Hz monitor, and that's still a great frame rate, but 60 Hz at 60 FPS with no G-Sync versus with G-Sync is night and day. Now, I'm not going to get into the super specifics about what G-Sync is. You guys can Google for that if you'd like to, but essentially it eliminates all stuttering and all tearing. So any tearing you get in-game as a result from gameplay and your camera moving really fast, that's eliminated. Now, it not only does that, but like it's weird how much smoother the game is with G-Sync enabled. You fire up Minecraft and throw it into full screen, it's amazing how buttery smooth it is. Like, you know, I don't get it. I don't get how it can be that smooth. And I specifically love having a G-Sync monitor for complex parkour maps, specifically because those frame accurate inputs are so important, you know, sometimes for those really complex jumps. If you get like 30 FPS or lower in Minecraft, sometimes 4-block jumps can be impossible. So versus getting 144 maximum frames per second that I'm able to see with a G-Sync monitor, very, very important to me. So yeah, anyways, let's go ahead and let's knock out the software. This is all going to be very quick. All of the settings you're going to need are going to be in the description below, but very specifically for capturing software, I use DxStory. You know, I'll show a few pictures on screen here, but DxStory, the beauty of DxStory, which is my capturing software, allows me to capture Minecraft in game at a really high, really high quality, is that I'm able to use my Astro Gaming Mix Amp, which allows me to capture multiple inputs. I hear all inputs in my ears equally, but they all capture to my PC as separate audio channels. DX Story's #1 feature is that you can capture separate audio channels. Minecraft and System Sounds are on one audio channel, so one audio channel. Skype is on its own, so that if people are too loud, I can turn that down without having to worry about the in-game sounds being totally screwed or totally quiet. And then the microphone, my microphone gets captured as its own input. So if I'm way too loud, I can turn that down. But typically what I do when I record with other people, I turn them down by a couple decibels so that my voice stands out more than theirs does, because I feel like that's important for my perspective video. But yeah, so that's what I use for capture software. It's just DX Story. My editing software specifically is Sony Vegas. It's what I edit my videos and my thumbnails in. So whenever I go to edit a thumbnail or something, all I do is I load up this template file and like I just type in like whatever I want the name of the video to be. You know, you can see if I drag that away, you can see that the subtext disappeared. If I wanted to, I could make the Minecraft text disappear, and so on and so forth. So I just mess around with the thumbnail until I get it right, you know, and I just name the orange text what I want it to be named. I can drag the orange text all around and it keeps that sort of gradient effect no matter what, and then I can throw a background image in and then I'm good to go. But yeah, for editing videos, I also have a template file as well. Let me just go ahead and let me fire that up super quickly. You guys aren't gonna be able to see it, but it's not really that necessary. But anyways, it's a template file. It'll go ahead and it'll load up here. So it includes my intro. If I go ahead and I zoom in here, let's see here, I have to actually zoom all the way out. But you can see on the top left of the screen there, you can actually see what's loaded in is the webcam border. And if I go ahead and I go right to about here, you can see that's my intro right there. So I have all of that in a template file so that I don't have to worry about messing with it, dropping it all in place every single time, because the intro, outro, and webcam is usually guaranteed for a video. But if I don't need the webcam, I can actually delete everything that has to do with the webcam out of this project file in 2 clicks. I just click and hit delete and it's gone. And then it's basically my template file for editing videos that don't have a webcam footage. So yeah, all right, and the last bit of software that I'm gonna go over here is a piece of software called OBS. I'm not gonna be showing it on screen here, but it is my broadcasting software. It's what I use to record and broadcast live footage. It is awesome because it's free, and it allows you to do some really crazy things and allows you to use really awesome plugins as well. So yeah, I'm not gonna get too much into detail about that, but again, all of the images you guys are gonna need for the settings are in the description below. But yeah, one final note that I do want to note about all of this is that there are free alternatives to everything that you guys are seeing here. I'm not exactly sure what you can get as far as free alternatives for capture software are concerned. I do know DX Story is $44. I think Fraps is like $25. I don't really recommend Fraps if you can like avoid using it. I don't know, I just don't like it very much. Bandicam is a pretty decent option, and I know there are other options out there. So yeah, as far as Sony Vegas is concerned for video editing software, there is Windows Movie Maker that you can use that's free. I'm sure there's other free bits of software. And specifically, even though I use Sony Vegas Pro 12, you can actually get Sony Vegas, I think it's Movie Studio, for like $50 or something. So you don't have to worry about that one bit. If you're building like a system for video editing, get Sony Vegas Movie Studio Platinum or Sony Vegas Movie Studio. I think it's like $50 or something. You can edit up to like 10 tracks at a time, which is a pretty decent amount. So, you know, not too bad at all. So yeah, that's pretty much what I use as far as my software is concerned. I also use Photoshop from time to time, but it's not really necessary because I have everything that I need right here in Sony Vegas. I can do all of my masking, I can do everything in Sony Vegas. And the brilliance of Sony Vegas for thumbnail editing is that the effects that you add onto the images are not permanent. You can adjust them in and out and whatever. Sometimes with some of the effects in Photoshop, they're permanent unless you undo them 1,000 times or something. But if you save a project file, exit it, and reopen, whatever effects you've added to an image are there. So yeah, that's the beauty of Sony Vegas. I can tweak things all the time, or I can bring this image, I can bring some of these images, like the thumbnail image, the background image, I can bring that back to its stock color and all that just by changing some settings. So yeah. I think that's pretty much it. If I have missed anything, for my webcam I use the default Logitech webcam software, by the way, and I use a Logitech C920 webcam. So yeah. Alright, so that pretty much does it for this portion of the video. If I have missed anything, I'll be sure to include information in the description below. If you guys always want up-to-date information as to what is in my computer, it will be on the About page on my channel. So go to my channel, hit About, I'll always have my PC specs there. So yeah. That's pretty much going to do it for me for this video, guys. I hope you all have enjoyed this sort of hardware software overview of my rig, of my system. I hope you all have enjoyed. My name is AntVenom, and I bid you all farewell. And I screw up that wave half the time. And yeah, thanks so much for watching.